beautiful. Let me ask, in the way of beginning, we generally try to define a few terms and things like that. And in the title, you have the entanglement. But I'm curious, just from maybe a most basic question, maybe many of the listeners understand, what you mean by philosophy. But what is art exactly? Like, what constitutes art?
Right. That's a super hard question. And the trick is to say something informative by way of an answer without being dogmatic and just, defining it. Here's how I think about it. Human beings are the making species. We make stuff. We make huts. We make dwellings. We make tools. We make our whole lives, going back to our earliest origins, are as the makers. I mean, if you look there's a lot of speculation about the ancient past, but if you look in the prehistorical record, for millions of years, our biological ancestors worked with very primitive tools, and there was really no innovation, no modification, until something like, this is very, very rough, something like 100,000 years ago. Then all of a sudden you get this technological explosion. There's reason to believe that the biological mutations that gave rise to modern human beings happened well before that, well before 100,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago. So there was a 250,000 year span, there was like a 150,000 year span between when those biological mutations happened and when our technological flourishing happened. That 150,000 years is a massive amount of cultural time. That is a massive, we don't even know how to imagine cultural change over that kind of time scale. And I think what we did during that time was we developed language, we developed clothing, we developed culture, we developed the technologies that essentially put us on the path that we're on now. So I think we really are the making species. And one of the interesting things about art is artists make stuff. And I think that the reason why artists make stuff is not because the stuff that they make is so special, but because making is so special for human beings. So when artists make stuff, they let us reflect. They give us an opportunity to reflect on us and on the place of pots or pictures or language in our lives. So, the choreographer makes a dance and then it lets us reflect on dancing in our origins, or the painter makes a painting and it lets us think about the way pictures function in our everyday life, or the poem makes a poem and it lets us think about what we take for granted in our use of language. So the point there is that art is a response to our nature, or to the ways we are accustomed to being. But there's another piece of the puzzle. I'm sorry, I always give long answers, forgive me, but there's another piece of the puzzle.
Please.
There's another piece of the puzzle, which is that, so let me give an example. So you have a picture of grandma in your family photo album, and that picture has a caption, "Beloved Grandma." You see it, it's your mom's mom, and you honor her through that picture. So that picture is a piece of something we made in a cultural setting. But now you take that picture and you put it up on the wall of a gallery. What is it? It loses its caption, it loses the context, it loses that social meaning that it has, and now it becomes a big question mark. So if somebody comes to the gallery, I don't know who that is, I don't know really what it's a picture of, therefore, and now it gives me an opportunity to think, oh, well, what do pictures mean to us, and why do we make pictures like that? So the grandma's picture gets turned into a work of art, which means it gets turned into a question mark that lets us think about ourselves. And then for me, this is the second piece I was going to say. In giving us an opportunity to think about ourselves, I think it gives us an opportunity to change and to become different. So I want to say art, unlike ordinary technology, is stuff we make to reveal us to ourselves and enable us to become different. Now note that way of describing it might be a painting, it might be a song, it might be a piece of pottery. I wrote a book called Strange Tools, in which I argued that a work of art is a strange tool. It's a tool that you don't know how to use. It's a tool that doesn't come with a user manual. And it's a tool, therefore, that makes you break your expectations and habits and become different to try to cope with what it is. And I think that's what art has always been.
I'd love it if you could say a bit more on that. I made a note of something in the book of this, art makes life new. Art and philosophy, this way of reorganizing ourselves.
Yeah.
Could you say a bit more there, Alva?
Yeah, please. The thing about us, we humans, but also I think we animals, is that we're creatures of habit. We do things, we learn to do things, we acquire skills, we follow the same paths every day, give or take. Life is an extraordinary set of learned, comfortable ways of carrying on. And I think that's true with our bodies, our postures, our attitudes, but also in our patterns of thought, in our use of language. And it's really good that we have habits, because habits scaffold going forward. How would you do anything with your life if you had to think about how to put your feet on the ground when you get out of bed in the morning? No, you don't need to think about how to put your feet on the bed in the morning, but you can think about another problem. So having habits frees you up to do other things. But habits are also limitations. They also hold us captive. It's really hard to be free of all the habitual ways we have of talking, thinking, responding. I mean, you walk down the street, you walk your dog or whatever. How much do you see? How much do you notice? It's almost as if we go through life blind because we are just almost operating automatically.